Welcome to Gritability, a podcast about the power of perseverance, overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds to attain the life of your dreams. I'm your podcast host, Adam Clausen, and with me in the studio is the beautiful, glowing, ever-radiant Ro Clausen.
Hello, I love that intro.
Yes.
Coming.
I know. I'm glad I get to keep them coming. So it's been a minute since we've been in here. But man, I am really, really excited about the guest that we have today. As our audience knows, we have had such good fortune in our lives. We not only found each other, but we have had so many incredible people come into our lives and be a part of our story. And we get to hear their stories, right? And today's guest is one of those individuals who I'm going to chalk it up to serendipity, like the universe conspiring on our behalf, because he's an amazing individual. And I'm not going to share all of the backstory. I'm going to kind of leave that to him. But it was really a chance meeting. And that conversation started like 18 months ago. And it has just continued since then. And I feel very fortunate that we've gotten to know him and kind of go on this journey with him as he's gone through some transitions, major life transitions like we have. And now he's here today to talk about his next big thing. And I am so grateful that he chose to come here to share it with us as one of the first. So he's on Gritability today. I want to give a warm welcome to our dear friend, James Cox. James, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Ro. It's good to see you guys. Thank you guys for having me on Gritability. It's an honor.
Well, it's an honor for us to have you here with us because you are like Hollywood royalty, and you're going to share a little bit of your background. We definitely haven't had any Hollywood on here, have we?
No, but I want you to do the Hollywood royalty.
Hollywood.
That was like Jersey.
So, man, James, you have an amazing background and, accomplishments, lengthy list, but I'm not going to botch those. I really want to turn things over to you. Please give us a brief introduction. Tell everybody about who you are, who's James Cox, and how did you end up here with us today? Because we're going to get into the backstory, but we need a proper intro first.
Well, like you said, my name is James Cox. I am a writer-director in Hollywood. I live in Los Angeles, and I have been working in the business for over 2 decades, several decades, whatever. I have directed 4 features, an acclaimed short, premiered at, have gone to Sundance Film Festival, Toronto Film Festival, worked with a number of Golden Globe and Academy Award winning and nominated actors, composers, editors, etc. And have been working, like I said, as both a screenwriter and a director. And recently, I wrote and soon am publishing my first novel, my first book, which is called Grand Theft AI. And it comes out July 23rd at bookstores, brick and mortar and online everywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, all of them, Goodreads. So pre-order now. No.
No.
I mean, that is honest. But anyways, so yeah, my first book, it comes out in a few weeks, and it's kind of been an interesting story. There's a lot of writers who write books and then come to Hollywood, not so many that go the other direction. And it's in the course of this project that we'll kind of get into that I met Adam, and we connected. Like, he obviously has a background that has a relationship with the criminal justice system. I've done a lot of work in true crime, and the stuff that I was researching at the time, we just kind of started chatting, and I think there was a quick mutual understanding. I mean, his story is nothing short of a miracle. You're looking at two miracles over there. It's incredible. What, 213?
213, that's the number.
Yeah.
But I want to jump in here and add, when I say that it was a serendipitous, encounter, it was literally a friend of mine who at the time, I wasn't even working at the organization that I'm at now, is at a conference, runs into you, and you're asking him questions. And he says, you know what, I've got someone you need to talk to, a guy who's been incarcerated, who knows the inside. And we exchange emails, leads to a phone call. And I remember Brian, my friend, who made the connection, saying, hey, this guy was asking me all these questions. I think he's trying to do a book or a film or something. You want to talk to him? And it was like very non-committal. And for me, there was no expectation. I was like, you know what? Sure. Like I just felt compelled for whatever reason to make the connection, to have the conversation. And when we got on the phone and you kind of laid it out and you said sci-fi. And for me, I've never been a fan of sci-fi. And I was like, oh man, I think he just lost me. Like, I don't know where this is going. But within less than 5 minutes, James, like you started sharing the narrative, what you were writing and painting such a vivid picture. I was drawn in to this story and I'm like, wow, amazing. And again,
thank you for that's a huge compliment.
And it was. And you're such a good storyteller. And I remember hanging up and telling Ro, I was like, hey, this guy just told me this incredible story. It was a sci-fi story. And I did it zero justice. And she's like, sci-fi?
I was like, I will not be reading that.
I was like,
right.
It was absolutely amazing. I was like, you got to hear this. And that's really what started the conversation. And it wasn't about my story at that point. It was all about your story, what you were doing. And I was so drawn in, and I just wanted to continue that conversation. And I would say a genuine friendship evolved out of that to where, like, I am truly grateful that we have you on here today and that we get a chance to promote this, because I have no doubt others are going to be equally as captivated when they read this.
And I have to add, back then I was like, I will not be reading that. But I watched some of your movies, but I never read anything you wrote until today when I read kind of like your bio/life story. That sold me completely. I will be reading this book. The way that you write is so comfortable, but also so deep. Like, you are such a deep thinker, but it's not an uncomfortable, stuffy way. You write so comfortably. I loved it.
And this is from, if you look behind us, two people who
we kind of like to read.
we've done some reading, as you can see. There's books around.
Clear. That's huge. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. That's incredible. When we spoke about me coming on, I just felt that the road that got me here it's just so seemed apropos to Gritability, and I could kind of just go into a little bit of it because, sometimes I think, the whole term Hollywood and the entertainment business, it's like a little bit of a monolith. And so having, there's a little bit of a story to the whole thing. I've been, obviously, living and breathing it for half my life. I had a very young, fortunate break into the entertainment business. I grew up in Northern California. I was like that kid in my backyard making movies with a camcorder when I was like 10 years old. And I went to Berkeley for a couple years and realized I wasn't in the right spot. I got myself out to NYU. And I was that kid you hear about every once in a while that's coming out of film school with this red hot short film that just exploded. It won at Sundance, it won a Student Academy Award, it won, it sold to HBO. But then when it got to LA, it just really caught gangbusters. Lot of good responses. My first three meetings in town were Ridley Scott, Jerry Bruckheimer, and Mike DeLuca. And all three of them hired me. You know, Jerry bought my first pitch on day one. Ridley and Tony Scott signed me to RSA, and Mike and Donna Langley hired me at New Line to direct a studio picture written by Scott Rosenberg and starring Jared Leto, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Selma Blair. I mean, it was crazy. I was like, 23 years old. I couldn't even graduate because I was already on set directing a $14 million studio picture. It was like a rocket ship.
That's the dream, right?
I was nothing shy of it. I have to say, once I got onto set, it was certainly a bit of a awakening. You kind of go from peanut butter sandwiches to 36 trucks like overnight, and it's a steep learning curve. I mean, I'll just be honest. Like there was a point where I was like on a tech scout, and I really realized I was like, oh wait, like I'm the most underqualified guy on this crew, and I'm in charge. I was like, what? And that's kind of what happens every time. Any first time director, that is what's going on, because usually they are going to be working with a crew that's seasoned and professional. I remember like the first day of shooting, like there was like this hush across the set because I turned the crew around twice, and I didn't even know what that meant. So it really took me a while to figure out, kind of get my sea legs, and then Mike DeLuca left New Line, and so when that picture lost its theatrical release, it took me a minute to figure out, what I'd done right and what I'd done wrong. And I think, for me at least, I realized at that point in time, there was just a fundamental difference between like director for hire and directing my own material. And by that, I mean my own writing. And that was right around when I read a script called Training Day. I don't know if you've seen this movie, but the script was as good as the movie. It was the best script I'd ever read. And I think I read it the day it published, which is rare. And I call up my agent. It took me like a day to get my agent on the phone. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, you gotta get me a movie in the room on this. This is like the best thing I've ever read. Like, why are you sending me all this teen scream stuff? Like, this is what I want. And he goes, and I think honestly, by that point, like it's already sold. It's like set up with Ridley or maybe Antoine already. But he's like goofs. And he's like, well, who sent you that script? I'm like, oh, I got a sample from this, came over. Wait, what? And he starts trying to backpedal and get out. And I was like, no. What do you mean? And he goes, well, that's an A-list only script, and I was like, everything changed, because I just knew right then that if I was going to direct the type of material that I wanted to direct, I was going to have to write it myself. And, this is kind of the beginning of my working with true crime. Because there's a really famous crime in Los Angeles that came my way right around then called Wonderland. And it is this grisly quadruple homicide that went down up in the Laurel Canyon, which is kind of a storied neighborhood in Los Angeles. 4 people just got brutally ended. And I got my hands on the LAPD crime scene tape, oddly, early.
How did that happen?
How?
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I sat there and I went down to the back of the station and I was like, here's $100. Will you go? No, I'm kidding. I was like, there was this, underground like kind of an underground video store on Vermont in Los Feliz that you go in there and they rented everything, Wow. And I just was flipping through. They had everything because at the heart of this story is a infamous porn star named John Holmes. Mm-hmm. And it is, if you watch Boogie Nights, that last scene with like, Sister Christian, why don't you, That's based on a true story. All of Dirk Diggler is kind of lifted off a true story. And so, you went down there and there's everything in this store. And I don't remember the name of it, but it was like you could rent like Jade Pussycat, which is like a vintage 1970s porn. You could rent, a legitimate movie. And then I'm sitting there flipping through and there's like this VHS with the Dymo labeler. It's like the LAPD crime scene tape. I'm like, and I will never forget, just like the plumes of blood on the wall and 4 bodies on the floor and bone shattering like wood. It just consumed me. I remember like when I sat down with Val Kilmer to come on to play the role of John. This is to what level, how deep and all in I was on this project. Val's sitting there and he goes, James, this might not matter to your process but it matters a lot to mine, which is like, do you know Dawn? Do you know Sharon? And that's John's girlfriend and wife at the time, played by Kate Bosworth and Lisa Kudrow. And I say to him, I go, Val, do I know Sharon Holmes? I'm like, that's Sharon's wedding ring. I've got it. I'm wearing it around my neck at that point. Wow. Lisa Kudrow was like, ew. Like, what are you wearing that for? And Val was like rip that thing off my head as faster than I could flinch. Like he sits there and just leans back and he's like rubbing it like a talisman, like Aladdin's lamp. And I'm just like watching him recede. And he just starts looking off into the ether and he's like, oh, a lot of pain, a lot of heartache. And he looks at me, he's like, and a lot of blood. I remember I leaned forward and I'm like, you want to know how deep the rabbit hole goes, Val? It goes all the way down. And I think that meeting lasted like 10 hours.
What?
And so the movie was just, it was haunted. The set was haunted. We shot on the scene of the crime. There were things that went bump in the night that I could not explain. There were no atheists in this foxhole. I have a very good ghost story, which would take this into an even deeper tangent. But, and the movie was magic, watching Val transform, directing him in that role class was in session. And then it caught the eyes of like legends. Oh, excuse me. It caught the eyes of legends, like huge influences in my life, like Michael Mann, Robert Towne, Bob Evans, Robert Zemeckis, a writer that proved instrumental in my career, Shane Salerno, and Francis Coppola. Like Val took me in the movie up to the winery and we like watched the movie in Francis Coppola's like private screening room. And the thing unspools and the light comes out and comes up and Frank Coppola comes at me with the fingers like out of Hearts of Darkness. He's like, James, the opener of your movie. And I'm like, oh my, is this happening? I'm not even 30 yet. So it was just, a rocket ship doesn't do it justice. And looking back, I realized like I had no idea just how fortunate I was, because I think it was right around there that my demons got the better of me. I was someone who always loved going out, love partying in New York City because that city never sleeps. But I was someone who just did not know how to draw the line between work hard and play hard. It was just one big, huge juggernaut of energy. And I think, looking back deep down in my insecure heart back then, I think I really did believe you had to live life like a rock star to be an artist. And then my dad died and it all caught up with me. The signs of self-destruction were already there, but when he passed, I just buckled. You know, he was like my best friend, and he went in a lot of pain. And I should have been in a therapist's office, like grieving with professional help. And instead, I just said, screw it. Right? Like in all caps, like, screw it. I was already making bad decisions, so I started making really bad decisions. And you know, offending super talented people, embarrassing myself in very public arenas, and showing up to critical professional moments unprepared, blowing huge opportunity after huge opportunity, like stuff that would have changed my life in such a real way. Like, you know, good movies, great relationships. I burnt them all to the ground. I just didn't give a damn. And my life got... Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, how long did this go on for? Like, I mean, you had to have realized that you were burning it all to the ground.
You don't, though. I mean, you do. Maybe you know it, but you're just, you know.
There had to have been some moments of clarity there.
Well, if character is who you are in the dark, then you keep the lights on. So, I mean, my life got really, really small, you know, for a long, long time. Until finally I just, you know, I woke up. It was, I'm just trying to do the math. It was Thanksgiving 2013. You know, my pops passed in 2006. You know, I actually know that for a fact because I knew where I knew I could feel the 7-year mark. And like for me, every year, especially the odd number of years, were really moments. And it wasn't just personally, it was like professionally, but I would be walking in or thresholds were happened, things that would occur. And, you know, and then, like I said, I just woke up, you know, I know exactly where I was. I was in the lobby of the Hyatt on Union Square in San Francisco. It was the Friday after Thanksgiving, and all the hair shot up in the back of my neck, like some wind blew through me, and everything changed. You know, I got back to Los Angeles, and I went to work facing up to who I'd become and finding the real me. And that's not the dark dude from New York City. You know, this was the kid in his backyard making movies when he was 10 years old. Like, was that passion still there? And it took me a long time to figure out who I was and put me back together again.
Were you working at this time, or were you able to, like, were you taking a break and then integrating these lessons back into your career? How did that work?
You know, I think one of the reasons why it was a big deal for me to attack the page. So I was always writing, you know, but not just creative stuff. Just always, you know, throughout everything. Yep. I've never stopped. But at this at the point where, you know, kind of in the foundry, so to speak, the abyss, it was a lot of personal stuff, like deep in the well, not just creative stuff. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, finding my true voice. And it's funny because it wasn't as much as like, I mean, I remember one of the first things that I do remember being like very confident in my writing and thinking, but just realizing, looking back, that it took a while to get to what that voice was. And I remember, you know, when my my last picture came back together, my last picture came together. And I mean came back because we had almost put it together. It's called Billionaire Boys Club. It's another true crime. It's actually not far away from Wonderland in theme, and which, it's in the 80s. Very different worlds, but that picture was a struggle. And it wasn't just because the production was arduous or the true crime was a labyrinth, but it was the main character that was so hard to get right. He is still in prison to this day. It's a guy named Joe Hunt. And I think, that movie dated back to my darkest days and this death wish fascination I had with condemned souls. And I was struggling, like, is this a cautionary tale that needs to be told? Or is it just a too-twisted nightmare of greed gone haywire, right? And, like, meanwhile, the world's changing fast. It's 2017, and the commercial prospects for that movie are dimming fast because we've got a gut check in our industry and in the culture entire. And let's be honest, it's the story of white privileged young men from Beverly Hills who commit horrible financial crimes until it all spins out of control and they commit horrible violent crimes. Like, did the world really need to see that? I can tell you what the commercial marketplace answer was, which was like, not at all. Sure. And so when that picture cratered, you can bet I was in a therapist's office that week, right? Like, I was like literally 3 of them. I mean, I'll never forget. I was like, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Keep going. I was going to ask you a follow-up, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, like it was literally, I remember looking back being like, Jesus, I was actually in 3 there. I was like on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday. And it just, because, you kind of like do the shotgun blast of whoever will take you to. Anyways, so I think you were, it didn't really help compared to, I have to give credit where credit was due. It was my fiance who helped me put that moment in perspective, right? When that movie fell apart. She is a brilliant and talented architect, a RISD graduate, an Academy Award-winning set designer. But most importantly, she's a crew member. And thanks to her, I was able to see that movie through my crew's eyes. Like, so many people worked so hard on that picture for so long. And right on the 1-yard line, the thing just imploded. Like, years of my life, sure, but like a year from hundreds of crew members, like gaffers and grips and PAs and, ADs. I mean, we worked across holidays. There was like a huge labor of love for that thing and sacrificed precious time and meals with our families and all that stuff. And like, for what? Like, for a 4-walled release on 10 screens to satisfy foreign? You want to know what I wanted to do, Adam?
Tell me.
I wanted to say, screw that, but I knew where that went. And so I just did the only thing I knew how to do. And I just started writing. And at that point, I wrote what I loved. And that means, like, back when I was 10 years old, like as a kid, like Star Wars, Alien, Aliens, Predator, Blade Runner, Snow Crash, Neuromancer, just prose at first, like little short story bios set in the coming golden age of AI, like this seamy dystopian technology crazed future with bots and brain computer interfaces and a government that's everywhere, beginning and ending with your head. I didn't know what it was or where it was going. I just knew it was true, what was true in my heart. World building sci-fi. But this time, at the center of it was this love story between 2 lost, damaged, battle-scarred souls who come together to find redemption and survive. You know, the world was dark and treacherous, but the characters were hopeful, you know, rootable, likable, you know, like Indy and Marion, Han and Leia, Ripley and Hicks, Neo and Trinity, Baz and Rhea.
He didn't tell me that
and I
part. I was like, I'm not reading
Yeah.
it. Now I'm sold.
Yeah, no, like, dude, I'm a softie. Like, I am a hopeless romantic. Like, accent on the hopeless. Like, I am always, you know, looking for the pony, riding off into the sunset, the whole thing.
But
I'm in
James-
Hollywood. What do you think we do? You know,
James,
we're dreamers.
how do you get there though, from a 7-year spiral down a dark hole to finding your true voice? Like, because it could have gone the other way, right? Like, you got it to the 1 yard line. You had a decision to make on what you were going to do with that. And you chose to go in this direction and tapped into something that I told you, from what I heard, instantly I knew was remarkable. How did you find that?
I guess it's like, there's two answers to that, and they're both 100% accurate. Like, I'm going to get all choked up. With a little help from my friends, and the only ones that are there at that point are the ones that are your true friends, and then they're not going to do an ounce of good because it's all up to you. And I think at the end of the day, you just, for me, it just was making a real decision. And I think this might be kind of where we connected of, you know, who am I now and who do I think I am? And what is the honest realities of those two things? And I think when you really, a lot of it is your self-identity. And whatever it is that may get you into some hole, you can be damn sure it's going to hurt climbing out. And I think there was a moment where I was like, oh, okay, so everything from here on out is going to suck royally, right? And there's just a switch that went off. And like, believe it or not, like, this little skinny dude was once like a tackle dummy in high school football. Like, if you've ever been lit up, like, I mean, I was like third string quarterback, tackle dummy, like practice squad, fighting to get a jersey, that whole thing. When you get the trophy that says most inspirational, that means like, dude, you know, you're the guy that takes a licking and keeps on ticking. And so, you know, it like, you just know, you're like, oh my God, this is about to hurt. So wham! And like, in comes some dude that weighs 3 times more than you do. And you're like looking out your ear hole backwards. You know, so it's kind of something like that where you're like, here it comes. So I think of that was a big deal, was a switch of just like, all right, you know, this is kind of how it's going to be.
I feel like that sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like that is like the Hollywood director, James Cox, author definition of gritability.
Good. There we go. So everything happens for a reason. Sometimes those reasons are you're stupid and make bad choices, but that's just a joke. That's like a meme. But anyways, yeah, but yeah, no, like that if that is gritability, then yeah, 100%. And I think that as like I talk about that when I was talking about the world and the dichotomy between this treacherous world and the hopefulness, my own hopeless romanticism, and the reality. I've kind of like Wonderland was a pretty grisly situation, and that's not the only, but like these are just dark keyholes into how we treat one another. You're like, and so I've always approached it, like I don't really believe in the bad seed, though they are definitely there. They're out there, right? But like when I'm approaching my characters, you know, you're kind of always like, okay, what was the human things that got set in motion? In fact, the bad dude in this one is you know, case hardened and forged on the streets of Detroit. You know, literally on the battlefield, or the coming battlefield, and you know, he just made a lot of sense to me. And I think people, when they when they read about Otto Rex, they're just like, where did this dude come from? And I was like, he came from you and me.
I love that.
Yeah. Tell us about the love story too, because as you probably
Oh, dude, it's
noticed,
awesome.
we
You know,
we
Rhea
kinda
is
like
like,
those love
go ahead.
stories. Yeah.
Yeah, well, bro, you're gonna like Rhea. I mean, she is. Well, the thing is like about the book, and you know, I should just launch into a little bit about it. So it takes place for the large part in the fall of 2051, and so it's like an accelerated 2051, or at least it was when I started writing this thing. You know, the world, like I said, it's very AI, what you call AGI, is a few years away, as are some of the things that Neuralink, one of Elon Musk's companies, and Synchron, the things where you've got like brain-computer interfaces, or like the interaction between actual human nerves and digital neural networks. So like that, like kind of fiber optic nerve graft has something that's revolutionized it. So you've got one of these in your head, and it's like a commercial product called the Wet Wire. And so all these cats kind of come together, and there is a seminal event that happens in the backstory to the book. It happens in April of 2043. So this is 8 years before the beginning of the book. And that is called the glitch, which is kind of the 9/11 of the synthetic generation, which has kind of defined all of America. And it's the opening chapter of the book, and it is a national trauma in which certain model androids collectively go haywire over the course of 3 hours one afternoon, and the entire country is never the same. So you've got like a roided out security apparatus that, you know, dwarfs what occurred in the wake of 9/11. And it's in this, and also you've got, you know, it's like I was on the thing, like you think about ChatGPT, or you think about Claude, or any of these, you know, large language models. They've been asking me on panels, like, are you scared of the future? I'm like, I'm not scared of these AIs. I'd be scared of who owns them. And so that's kind of this world where it's like, due to this event, they're all siloed into like transnational companies and private individuals. And you want to know who doesn't own them? You, me, and the taxpayers. And so it's in this dystopia that these guys come together for the ultimate score. And in the course of that, you know, wacky hijinks ensue. I mean, I'm kidding, but yeah, like they've dug into something that's a lot more than they bargained for. And you know, if you were a fan of sci-fi, right? Like if would fall into like kind of a cyberpunk, like a Blade Runner. You know, the guy who I've mentioned before, Shane Salerno. You know, like when I was writing this thing, and I was telling you, it was like kind of exploded into these short story bios, and eventually it kind of evolved into a screenplay, and then it just kept going. It was strangely a novella, and I just kept writing, and it just kept growing, and I didn't know what it was or where it was going, but it was coming out of me like butter off a hot biscuit. You know what I'm saying? And so finally, I just sent this manuscript out to my mentor, Shane Salerno, and he read the thing in a day. Right. And like nobody reads anything in a day. And he called me up carte blanche, or point blank. And he was like, yo, a heist set in a Blade Runner Matrix world. We can do something with this. You know, I mean, he envisioned a world that was as like bold and far-reaching as I did, but he also felt like the manuscript wasn't ready yet, but he wanted to develop it together, and then when the time was right, we were going to take it out to publishers. But he was straight up. He was like, "Look, I can't help you with directing right now, but I know how to get this book published." And so we went to town with it. And by the time we took it to Blackstone, I mean, they got involved. This is Blackstone Publishing, and they flipped for it once it had a bow on it. And then you think that's a long road. Then I started entering into kind of the professional publishing landscape and developing the novel with that team, this sensational team at Blackstone Publishing. This is Josh and Stephanie Stanton, Josie Woodbridge, my copy editor, Michael Crane, and my developmental editor, Diana Gill. Just an amazing team of perfectionists, working draft after draft.
And this was your first experience?
And I'm thanking them all along. I'm thanking them right now. Thank you, because I am so proud of this novel. It is the best thing I've ever done. But also, like, it has, when it evolved into a screenplay, it was kind of like an Ocean's 11 set in a Blade Runner world, right? And the thing about the cyberpunk world, the genre is so often like Blade Runner or The Matrix. You're just kind of dropped into this world, and it's up to you to figure out how you got there. Or Minority Report or anything like that. And because of like the way this had kind of evolved, where I'm like writing, now I come from true crime, I come from historical historical fact-based stuff. There has been some like a Norman Mailer book that I adapted set in the Red Scare. So for me, I had to kind of build a future history. And that was what these bios were. And so when it evolved into the book, it kind of kept that character in terms of, it's what's called a framed narrative. So chapters 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, whatever are set in the fall of 2051. And then every time you're introducing a new character or an element to the world, we're pulling back. And so there's stuff and we're pulling back. I don't want to say like a flashback chapter, but kind of a world building thing where we're picking up like from, 2026 or even further back. And so a number of these characters are already born. And some of the backstory stuff to it, like these flashbacks, are set in the 2016, set in 2008, wherever. And so you're really building this world where you've got computers in your head and, synthetic androids walking around and flying cars and the whole train of all that stuff. But it's all built off tonight.
I love this.
I told you you were going to love this. Even if you're not a sci-fi fan, you can't help but get just sucked in. I'm telling you. And I have a feeling this is going to make it to the big screen, because I think technically there is wood laminate on this desk.
Well, not quite.
This is wicker. Yeah, it is naturally cinematic because I'm a filmmaker first, right? So it was originally a screenplay and it evolved into. So I would love to see it adapted,
Yeah. Well, I would say there's a pretty good chance of that, especially considering your track record of what you've already managed to accomplish. And one of the things I love most about our conversations is your perspective. Everything comes from a filmmaker's view. And I love your movie references and everything that you throw in. It allows me to see the world differently. You do an excellent job of allowing other people to see the world through your eyes. So I'm excited to read the whole book.
I'm excited for you to buy the book. I'm kidding. I'm going to get you the book. No, but I'm excited for the book to come out. I'm very excited for you to read it. I'm very excited for everyone to read it. It's been a long road, and I'm, like I said, I'm very proud of it. And there's just, it has just started to get reviews, like some advanced reader copy, whether it's on um, fellow authors, Publishers Weekly, some good reads that, people that picked it up at like book conventions and stuff. And, for those people who are into this sort of thing, they love it. And then there's the people that aren't into this thing and they like it, which is good. It's hard to get people who aren't into this type of stuff to dig it. So it's really exciting, and it's a real it's a whole new thing.
Very cool. You said July 23rd, and anywhere online or brick and mortar?
Yeah, the best way to do it is come to like jamescoxbooks.com.
Okay.
Is the best place to just my socials and how to order the book and the what's called buy buttons. I mean, you can go to Amazon and Google Grand Theft AI. So it's out there. It's pre-orderable, and then it arrives. I think it ships on the 23rd, and then whenever you get it. Yeah.
Well, we're going to make sure that we get all of those up on the screen so our viewers are able to see all of those links to all your socials, the easiest way to grab a copy for themselves. But I would be remiss if we just did not mention the fact that, like us, your perspective changed just a little bit, by an addition to your family, I would say.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, when you and I, when we met, so when Blackstone bought Grand Theft AI, they bought the sequel too, right? And so the reason why I rang Adam I was put in touch with Adam and we got on the phone together is because as I was finishing, the copy and the proof to book one, at the same time, I was researching, working on, and eventually finishing the manuscript to book two, which is what Adam and I have been speaking about. It does involve like the criminal justice system of the future. And so I finished that manuscript the week my daughter was born.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, that's the headline, right? I buried the lead. Yeah, man. I mean, you talk about everything changing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything. And it's like, everybody says this. So it's like, you've heard it a zillion times, but I was holding her in my arms this morning. I was looking in her eyes. I was thinking about coming on your podcast, thinking about this long road, and I was definitely wondering if this was going to qualify as gritability, and I was really thinking a lot about the bad decisions, and that area of what was forged in that cauldron. And what's crazy is that after all the stupid shit I did, somehow it led to something, someone so beautiful and marvelous and precious. And that's what my daughter's name means, precious, a pearl. And now, like the characters I write, the movies I work on, how I interact with people, how we treat one another, it carries so much more responsibility because I'm shaping a life now. The world can be dark, but heroes have got to be heroic. Heck, I'm a role model now. And so, today I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful, for one more chance to share my dreams. The blessing, the luck that anyone out there might read something I write I mean, that's a blessing from the universe. It's not as profound as my daughter's smile, but it is a blessing nonetheless. And I trust that now, like after all this, you know, I can show my colleagues, my readers, and myself the humility, gratitude, and respect that this opportunity deserves. And I can't help but wonder, and I think you guys get it, you know, it's so strange, but it's like, had my last picture not tanked, my first book wouldn't be coming out on July 23rd. Like, I wouldn't be on this podcast. I wouldn't be working with my mentor, Shane Salerno, this force of nature, who's like one of the most talented dudes I've ever worked with. But, and this is legit, like, I would not be holding my little baby girl in my arms. Marveling at the miracle. You know, I keep hearing Captain Miller's last words to Private Ryan, like echoing in my head over and over again. Earn this. Thank you guys for having me on your show.
Listen, this has been amazing, James. Thank you so much for wanting to come on and share this with us. Listen, it's been an honor to get to know you over the last 18 months, to be along, you know, as you go through.
Yeah, she was just a colonel when we spoke, right? And we were, you know, you're like, uh-oh, get ready.
It changes things, but I will say this, James.
Yeah, man, it does.
As for both of us and for everyone that, you know, we generally have the opportunity to have come on this show. It's all of those challenges, all of the things that we had to go through to get to where we are that allow us that sense of gratitude that you just expressed. And I say it all the time. I live with a sense of gratitude every single day that a lot of people will never understand. But I know that you, because of what you've been through, you get it. So that's what Gritability is all about.
Amen, brother.
James,
Amen.
We appreciate you. We loved having you here. It's been another incredible episode of Gritability. We love all you guys. We'll see you right back here on the next episode.